Hey, everybody. It's time for another episode of Grant Draws. As always, I'm Grant Lankard. And as always, we are sponsored by the Independent Creator Directory. Do you know what the Independent Creator Directory is, Alan?
I actually didn't until I saw your previous. I saw an example of one of your previous streams, and I signed up or joined it recently. So been
Oh,
checking that
did you?
out. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
submitted to the Facebook group. So yeah,
Cool, 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 cool. Yeah, so I don't know if Joe Bachman is in the chat or not, but he's he's the guy who runs it, and yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
nice.
Uh, to, Today we're going to be talking about Alan's comic book Red Cat. Now, just so you know, this is a pre-recorded episode, so if you're typing away furiously, wondering why we're not answering your questions, uh, that's why. So don't get mad at us for that. Okay, so this is going to come out Monday.
Perfect.
So I should still have my Kickstarter up, League of Cryptids, and hopefully, well, okay. So this, uh, if this is airing on Monday, then I'm assuming League of Cryptids will have made like $200,000 by now.
Nice. One can hope, right?
One can
One
hope,
can
right?
hope. Yeah.
No, hopefully we just went over like the $3,000 mark and we unlocked
Nice.
another stretch goal. But okay, so you said your Kickstarter is launching on Thursday. Is that this Thursday or next Thursday?
This Thursday, February 29th. It's my first one, so I figured like the chances of being born in that day, it's got a long shot, but it's worth the. I'm certainly
Right.
put a lot of effort in it to make it successful. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so when this airs, your Kickstarter will officially be
Underway, yeah.
underway. Okay,
So maybe it'll give me my
so
first boost or bump. Who knows? So
exactly.
any
Okay,
chance I can
so
get the word out on it. So.
the name of your Kickstarter is Red Cat. Let's see if I can bring it up. Uh,
Yeah, the main character is Red Cat, and the mini series that I'm launching the issue one of. It's a 4-issue mini series, and issue one is what I'm launching with. It's called Red Cat Celebrity Status.
okay.
Um, and it's my first original project. So I've done a few other projects in the past, but this is my first one that's all my stuff. So pretty excited about it.
Yeah, so you're still in pre-launch, so there's not a
Yeah,
lot to see on your Kickstarter. Uh,
not yet,
I'm sorry,
not yet. Yeah,
not yet, but this should be live as of Thursday. So if you're
yep.
watching this in the future, or I guess to you, it's not the. If you're watching this, it's not the future to you. To you, it's just the present. But so you should be able
It,
to see that it's live now, and you can go on the Kickstarter. I'll put the link in the notes, and I'll bring back your screen here. Okay, so this
cool.
is. We wanted to talk a little bit about your process. So is this an all 3D comic book?
It is all 3D rendered artwork. So there's lots of different ways that people think of 3D. They think of other 3D comic books. They think of ones that were like you had to use 3D glasses to look at and see, depth and things like that. That's not this. This is using 3D software to render the base artwork and then finishing it a little bit in Photoshop or a lot, depending on the piece, to create the style that I have and the look that I have and the panel by panel breakdowns to create the art for the comic book.
So
So,
what program is this that you're using?
so the one that we're looking at here is called Poser. A lot of people might be familiar with its competitor, Daz Studio. Those two kind of grew up together. Poser was first, and it started out as it was basically a digital artist mannequin. So if people are familiar with the traditional artist mannequin, that nice little wooden figure that you could pose in many directions to use as a reference for drawing the human figure. Um, there was a guy named Larry Weinberg who created this software to do virtually the same thing going back to the mid 90s. And I got my hands on the very first one all the way back then. And it was a cool art resource, art tool. I was able to do some drawing, it would help you with get the pose and the lighting direction and things like that. And it was pretty cool. But it grew and it grew and grew and grew. And we're currently on version Poser 13. Now, one of the biggest providers of pre-made content for this, because the thing about Poser is that as Poser grew, it wasn't a modeling program per se. There's some very limited things you can do in it in terms of modeling. Most models are imported from modeling programs. This is like a layout and composition tool for the most part. You can use it for still compositions, which is what I do. You can use it for animations, which is what I kind of do, and I'll explain in a minute. And it can be used for all kinds of other, illustration purposes. And so most of the content starts out as pre-made content. There's these pre-made base human figures and clothing and accessories and scenes and props and vehicles and you name it. There's tons of stuff. And I've been collecting content over the years. Some of it free, a lot of it costs money. I catch sales when I can. And one of the biggest creators of content for a long time was this company called Daz, which developed out of a company called Zygote. And Zygote's still around. They mostly do 3D medical models and things like that. But they kind of spun off this hobbyist market with Daz. And Daz supported Poser for a long time. And then Daz kind of went its own way because Daz wanted to control more of the flow of the content, things like that. So it's just like it's like the difference between Windows or Mac OS. It's like, sometimes they do similar things, but you kind of go with the one that you like most or you're most familiar with or most comfortable with. I try to open up Daz Studio, and sometimes it's like I feel like I have to take like 3 steps back just to take a step forward. It's just easier to stay in Poser. So here I am, still in Poser to this day.
Cool. So now, if I understand, do people create? I'm trying to figure out how to word this. So,
Sure.
okay, so you have mannequins in the program,
Basically, yeah.
or quote unquote mannequins,
Right.
and then you can kind of like rearrange them to be in the pose that you want them to be in.
You can pretty much guide everything. The thing about working in 3D like this is I see it more like it's even more like making a TV show than maybe even creating a comic is. Um, because I'm doing like first I have to cast. So let me give you an example. I'm going to go ahead and I assume you can see my movement. Yes, you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Poser here, and I'm going to go to my figures, and I'm going to load up one of my popular figures here. And this is going to be a figure called Michael 4. And Michael 4 is several generations behind, but I've got so much content for him, and he's good enough. There's a lot of things where a lot of people like obsess about, the newer technology with this stuff because they want the best possible looking figures. But most of the time it's because they're doing, we'll say nudes or scantily clad figures. And it matters that, a certain elbow doesn't bend exactly the way you want it to or more naturally because that improved over time. But the thing is most of my stuff is clothed. So I got the content I use is good enough. Now, this particular character is Michael 4. Over here, I have this Michael 4 plus plus. I created a version that was already preloaded with a lot of what they call morphs. Morphs are what allow you to change the appearance of the figure. There's a few other versions is here as well. Change the base, like the physical form of the figure. You can change the look with textures later. So let me go ahead and launch Michael 4 here. And he should load up in the T pose. Probably should have loaded the blank, but I wanted to show off some of that. All right. And so that's the base figure. So initially, it's a little like, what's that?
Here's a little something for the ladies.
Yeah, they intentionally put the boxers on him with version 4. They wanted to be friendly for a long time. Doesn't mean I couldn't make him naked if I needed to, but so Michael 4 is this base figure, and the thing is like this is the first stage of the process. This is like the early part of the casting call where you put out a call. You say, I need an actor 20s to 30s, male, Caucasian, and then boom, he's there. But right off the bat, I can make changes. And so I have my various palettes here and everything. So I'm going to switch over to my body here. And I'm going to go to my morph shapes and my morphs plus and full body. And so right off the bat, I can do something like this, make them a bodybuilder. And so I can change that. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit.
That's a
Zoom
lot
in.
easier than
Let's
working out.
exactly right. All right, so we go back to the body here. Okay, and so we'll give him a half a bodybuilder build, and then we'll give him a half of a beer belly build, and maybe a little bit of heavy. And so I'm working on was it Falstaff or Volstagg? I think it was Volstagg. You know, so I have a lot of options, and there are tons and tons of options to control all the different aspects of it. All right. Now the next thing I can do is I can give him a look. So this is like the casting phase of it, where I go into my various character mats and I can give him dozens of different hundreds essentially of different looks. So let's get a little diversity in here. Let's go to, how about Jackson? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give his face a new look because right now this is the default face. So let's use my face cam. I'm going to turn it slightly so we can see it. And we're going to give him a new face. All right, there's his face. And then we'll give him a matte to match. And this takes a load. There we go. All right, so now I have a completely new character. And he's no longer wearing underwear. So we should fix that. So, we get our cast, all right, and then you can even get your stylist in and do hair. So let me see if I can find, let's see, where's my good hair here? Prop hair. Nope, hair.
So some of the models are wearing underwear and some of them aren't.
Well, the models are usually have a base underwear. Okay, I don't like that one. They usually have a base underwear, but then like all the texture sets that are available are all naked. And so then it's just a matter of then you can clothe them, because the thing is depending on how you're clothing them, you may not want that preset underwear to kind of show through. Oh, where is it? So let me see if I can figure out what I did with it. Maybe that. Oh, I know why. It's in my unisex hairs. Okay, there we go. Let's give him some dreads. All right, maybe a Rastafarian Volstagg from Jamaica. Okay, and where's my fits? And the thing is like these things are designed to fit. Uh-oh, I don't have that fit. Okay, let's go with a different one then. We'll come back on that. Come on, there we go. Do I have? You know what? I bet you I have. Let me see here. I didn't plan for this. Here we go. Okay, and once you have it, and a lot of times you have to go in phases. So you start by loading up the item that you want to use, and then you have to texture the item. So like in this case, I loaded up a figure hair, and there are figure hairs, and then there are like prop hairs, and that has to do with how much the hair itself needs to move. So like if you've got a shortcut, you can make that a prop, and it'll just kind of sit on the head and follow that around. But if you got a long hair, you need that hair itself to kind of flex and bend with the body. And so then you got to plan accordingly. And what was that? That was not, there we go. Let's see here. Let's give it a nice standard look. And there we go. And then let's see if we can hide that part. No, I don't think I can. Maybe I can hide it with, let's just try this. No, that didn't do it. What happens when I do that? Okay, that's not going to work. Styling, adjusting, ends closer. Hide long hair. There it is. All right. So now we got a nice little fun style here going. Okay. All right. And so then after he's done with his hair and makeup, then we send him to clothing. Now, do we want to go modern? Do we want to go fantasy? Do we want to go sci-fi? Do we want to go bizarro? What do we want to do for our clothing?
You know what? I'm along for the ride. So you pick what you want.
All right. Since Red Cat's a kind of a superhero story, let's go sci-fi. And let's see what I've got. Do I have something that will accommodate? What's a good one? Oh, this one's always fun. All right. So first thing we'll do, let's give him some pants. Let's hope these pants fit with his heavy build. Nope. Okay. So we'll take the heavy build away.
I'm,
Come on.
I'm sorry for laughing so hard at that, but it was
That's all right. It's all right. Sorry, buddy. You need to go on a diet before we accommodate you. There we go. Okay.
okay.
But he can still be built. All right. So there we go. Why doesn't that one have that support? Now, there are some distinct. Okay, it allows for bulk. So we'll go back and do bulk. What did I do? Oh, I accidentally. Give me 1 second here. The thing about Poser, the thing about working with my particular computer, because I'm due for a new one, is that sometimes there's a little bit of delay in certain things, and that leads to things not going the way I want them to. There we go. Give him a little heft. All right. So there's his pants, and you notice the pants came in without texture, right? So they're nice and white. Let's go ahead and throw that shirt on him here. Oh, you know what I should have done? You know what this guy would? That's fine. This will work. I was just thinking I could do a different one, but we load up all the clothing items. Okay.
Oh,
Whatever
gloves.
clothing items we want to use. Let's get the boots. Do we want to tuck the boots? Let's tuck the pants or the boots. Tuck pant legs.
Oh, wow. So you
There
have
we
a
go.
lot of options.
A ridiculous amount of options. Absolutely. And now you'll notice that his shoes are getting cut off at the bottom. The reason is because I have an infinite backdrop, which is creating this virtual scene. And he is, because he's physically in the position he was before. Excuse me, don't do that. You're doing it again. Okay. Because he's physically in the position he was before. His feet are pretty much on the ground, but the boots are much thicker than that. So then I have to position him. I have to move him up. So there's a lot of like time and effort that goes into this process of initially setting it up. But here's the cool thing about this. The reason this works so well in the long run is that you look at some of the details that we're going to see here. And I'm going to go ahead and pop in a few more pieces so we can kind of really see it. Let me get the utility belt, because now picking this set out in particular was a good one for me too, because a lot of Red Cat's look is based on this particular outfit. A good number of the pieces that he is wearing are directly from this set. So that was kind of intentional. And okay, so I got all the pieces in place, but let's give him a cybernetic arm. If it
Now we're
fits.
talking.
Okay, so I think there's a fix for that. All right, so he's got a cybernetic arm, he's got all the pieces. Now we need to give them color. So we're gonna go in here and we're gonna go to a good friend of mine made this set of, where is it? Here we go. Made this set of textures for it, some custom textures. So let's see, what's your favorite color?
Brown.
Brown. Good, I got a brown set. Okay, so we're gonna give him brown. Whoops, let's go full boots. So we'll give him brown boots.
I realize now brown will probably blend in with his skin color, but yeah.
That's all right. I mean, oh, I forgot the elbow pads. Okay, let me go back here real quick. Let's give him his elbow pads. Where are they? Okay, now I don't want an elbow pad on the side with the cybernetic arm. So taking my modification even further, I can go ahead and hide things. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna hide the right shoulder and the right forearm. Okay, because I don't need to see that side. And we're gonna do the same thing with the glove. We don't need the glove. Why would he need a glove over his, cybernetic arm, right?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and hide that. Okay, so I take 1, 2, 3. Sadly, the hand is one of the trickier ones to manipulate and modify because there are multiple pieces. I mean, the hand is one of the more tricky things to pose, and so it has a lot of joints, and so you have to like select all the joints. But they've gotten better with Poser being able to select multiple items and make multiple changes, so that's been cool. All right, so let's go back. And the reason I hid those, there's 2 ways to hide things. You can hide things by making a mat that makes the thing invisible, or you can physically hide the object part of it, and that all depends on what you're doing with it. So like if I used a mat that made it invisible, every time I apply a new mat, that mat would have to be reapplied and make it re-invisible again. So sometimes it's easier to hide the object, but sometimes that hiding doesn't always work right because the 3D models aren't necessarily built, and they're built in sections, and those sections aren't always given the most perfect seams. So sometimes you can have a weird jagged edge that doesn't work right. So it's a lot of trial and error sometimes to get things that you want. And this is one of the challenges for me, is that sometimes when I'm creating my own stuff, I give myself a lot of like flexibility. Like if I envision it one way, but then I don't have the right materials to do it, I will make modifications accordingly. And I'd be like, okay, it's going to be good enough. It's going to be close enough.
Right.
But when I'm working on somebody else's project, that can be a lot trickier because I've really got to try to nail their look as they established it. And that can be challenging. A good example is I'm actually going to be doing a little cross promotion with Geek Girl by Sam Johnson.
Oh, okay.
And he, I created a 3D version of Geek Girl. And this will be actually, I think this is one of the first, well, I posted on Facebook, but I'm going to show your readers as well, or your viewers, readers, your viewers. Let me go ahead and get to, I believe it's here. Let's see, is it here? No, I think it's on this one. Is it? Nope, it is on this one. Oh, maybe it's here. No, it's here. I just got to find the right spot. Where is it? Here it is. All right, so this is an example of Geek Girl. I actually did two for him. Sam was the first one to use one of my pieces for a variant cover.
Neat.
So that was exciting. Let's see here. Here is, nope, not that one. This one, right? Is this, that's not the finished one. Here it is. So this is an example of a crossover. So getting my version of Geek Girl took some challenges. For example, to try to find a shirt that closely matched the shirt that she was wearing. I have this one here, but you'll notice there's this little piece in here. It's almost like a little undershirt kind of thing that I just colored the same to make it work. So sometimes you have to make compromises to get other people's stuff just right or get it close as possible,
Yeah.
but it's okay. It's all part of the process. And in some cases, it's all about capturing the essence of,
Now,
I mean,
how picky was he about like the look
he wasn't really, he was pretty cool with it. I've had some people kind of go back and forth with me a few times on like changes and things like that, where it's like, well, can it do this? And it's like, ugh. But I also have this thing I call my oh duh moment. This started years ago with a buddy of mine. We worked on some projects together, and he would always be the one who would really push me to get a certain, to achieve certain looks. And sometimes I'd be like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can do that. And then I would remember something and I would go, oh duh, and I would do it. So he was that's where I kind of developed my oh duh moment. All right, where's my shirt? There's my shirt. Oh, this is a fun shirt. It's got kind of a tiger pattern here. Wait, did I not get on the shirt? No, I'm on the vest. Okay. Full vest. Almost done. So we're almost done getting the look we want. And where's my shirt? Ooh, that's my shirt. That's my shirt. Okay. Have I gotten everything? I'm missing the, okay, one last thing is the cybernetic arm, which is in a separate section here. Let's see. Arms. Okay. Which arm is going to go good with this? I think brass arm. Still have to make that work. So I
metals.
Okay. Yeah, well, this particular person made different metals for it, so you could have different looks depending on the style.
It almost kind of looks like a
But
C-3PO arm.
it does. Now we're going to go ahead and use this last little trick to hide the right arm. And there we go. Now we can see the cybernetic arm comes through. All right. So now we got to call in the choreographer. This is the person who's going to decide how this person should stand. Because posing is the next thing. And so I got to bring up there we go. So I close out my character mats. And this organization, a lot of it was manual. I had to come up with my own, strategies for how to organize this ridiculous amount of content that I have. All right. So let's see here. The particular post that I'm going through right now is actually a set I created and sold commercially, and it's still available. I went through a phase where I was doing that for a bit because there's a lot of hobby artists and semi-professional or professional now. Many of them are professional, like that's all they do, who have created these pre-made content. So it saves us a lot of time. Okay, so now he's posed, but he's turned. So let's turn him back. All right. Now, the thing about some poses is that they're designed for the base human form, and they don't really necessarily accommodate things like, oh gosh, this guy's kind of big here, and so his arms can't go that close to his body, which we've
Right.
seen with bodybuilders who stand with their arms too far apart, stand it like they got wings or like they're about to fly. All right. This is a good fun post set, but I want a hand that's a little more, I want that hand to be a little more dramatic here. Let's see, where's my fist? Not that one. Let's make him, there we go. This one's got some good, there we go. Right hand. All right. So now there's a lot more things that we can do in terms of like we could give him a gun or other weapons, give him a fancy sword, things like that. My particular hero, Red Cat, uses a handbow, Hanbo, I think it is. Kind of a modern take on that. So it's basically like a short staff.
Oh, okay.
That's been his weapon of choice since I think, gosh, as long as I can remember. I've been using that one. Okay.
How long
One of
has
the
this
cool
idea
things
been in your head?
that's a great place to go next. Yeah, the character Red Cat evolved from the original character, which is a character named Night Strike. Night Strike was this sort of generic. So I'm a big fan of two types of characters. I've done role playing games in the past, tabletop role playing games, and I usually gravitate towards two kind of characters. And I'm kind of creating the first one in this look I'm giving this character right now, and that's the tank, the character that's like the big, bulky, Hulk-like character who just powers through everything. My
Right.
other character choice is always the acrobat, the agile character. So
Okay.
sometimes I gravitate towards the Batman, Captain America types. Sometimes I gravitate towards the Nightwing, Daredevil types. Red Cat is very much on the latter. He's very much that Daredevil type, Nightwing type of agile, kind of martial artist character, street level crime fighter, vigilante type. And I actually have, if I can figure out where I put it here, let's see here. I have is it future Instagram posts? Nope, that's not it. I want to see if I can find it here. It is here it is. I think this is it. Let's see. So this is where is it? Is it this one? Yes. So this was the concept you can see here. I hope you can see it. That was kind of the original idea, as you can see in the hand
Yeah,
drawing that I did many, many, many years ago.
it does kind of look like Daredevil.
Yeah, yeah, pretty basic, pretty generic. At that time, he was called Night Strike, Night Striker, Striker Knight. He went through several different variations, and the one constant was the staff in the one hand and some kind of like bracer on the other hand. Because I'm also a big fan of Captain America, so I like the idea of some kind of like little buckler shield thing. All right. And so that was it. And so then over time it evolved, and I went through several different variations until I got to, let's see, Red Cat, Steel Cones. No, that's not it. Let's see if I can find it. I don't think so. I think I landed on, I don't think any of these are, nope, those are different ones. Okay. Until I landed on the design that I have now, which is, okay, wait a minute. Red Cat, is it here? Let's see here. Red Cat mask, keeping track of where everything is can be a little challenging. Let's see here. Yeah, I landed on this design right here. The mask was probably my favorite innovation. This is his final mask. Part of this mini series is kind of like evolving his original mask into his final mask. So a lot of the materials that I'm doing right now are showing off the current mask, which is this first mask right here, which is this one right here. And it's a model I came across that was like ideal because in his initial kind of kickoff, he has this idea in his head about who he is and where he fits in the world and how he came to be. And the first issue kind of reveals that this may not be true. And so there's a evolution that happens in the miniseries that brings us to that final mask. But this is his initial mask. And this is what everyone's going to see in the first issue.
Right.
But you can see the similarities. You can see some of the pieces that I pulled from that other outfit. So you can see how the pants The knee pads and the belts and the gloves and the elbow pads are all from that other set. But then I got a different shirt. I got different gauntlets here. I got different boots and kind of built out the ensemble. And then I custom textured some of them. So like this pattern on his top is a custom texture. It is let me see if this is the back view. Yeah, it's a custom texture that I made in Photoshop. So when you want to change the look of a 3D model, you have to think of it as like a soup can, right? Soup can is the can is the 3D model. The label is the texturing, is the materials that you can add to that model to change its appearance.
Right.
So if you have so if you rip the labels off 7 different cans, you don't know what's inside, right? And so that's kind of a big part of it. And so customizing that is what allows characters to have their unique looks. And that's often where a good portion of the work of developing the character's look comes from, is getting those custom textures just right. So back to our mystery dude here. We'll have to see if we can come up with a name for him by the end of our time together. But let's see. So let's give him a scene. Let's give him some place to stand that isn't some generic little empty room. So first we hide.
I was wondering how you were going to do that.
So we're going to hide the empty room. And so he's standing in space. And we're going to hide space. So he's standing in nothing. And we'll put space back for now. And then we're going to go to, do we want him indoors or outdoors?
How about indoors?
Indoors. All right. All right. So then I go to I have 2 kinds of indoor material or objects to work with. I have indoor figure pieces, and I've got indoor like prop pieces. The choice to make something a prop or a figure is entirely up to the content creators. And there are certain logics that some of them employ that it's like, that's great, that makes sense. Other times I'm like, why did you do it that way? You just made my life harder. Makes it harder to customize. Okay, so do we want to go modern, fantasy, or sci-fi with the scene? Let's go sci-fi. These are fun to look at.
Yeah, sci-fi fits with the character, right?
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to load this up. And this is going to be a lot of... Okay, so it's still loading its textures. Takes a moment. There we go. All right, we got our scene. Now, right now, we're kind of up close. We can't really see too much of what's going on. So we can use another camera. We have multiple cameras that we can work with to look at it from different angles. We have cameras to zoom in on things and all kinds of stuff. So now we take this particular figure of a scene, and we're going to move it back so we can position him more down the hall. All right, then we go back to our main camera, and we see that we're starting to get somewhere. Starting to get a scene. I'm also using something called the rule of thirds, a classic technique photographers use a lot, where you off-center your focus because it tells a better story. So you're probably familiar with that.
Yeah, or
I always like
it's also kind of related to the golden mean.
Yes,
You know what
exactly.
that is?
Yep. All right, let me turn his neck a little bit because he's looking a little away from us. I wouldn't mind him looking at us. He's definitely got this expression right now, even without an expression, that's kind of like, what do you want? So,
Right.
all right, so we got our scene, and that's cool. Sometimes, now the thing is a lot of my content was made years ago, and the newer versions of Poser supports more advanced techniques like physical-based rendering, or physics-based rendering, which is a way to kind of like realistically light and render a scene. Now, in the past, people would often cheat how they would do lighting in a scene. So if you had, for example, behind his his right shoulder, there's a couple of lights there that look like they're glow lights, but they don't really glow. But I want them to really glow. So now I'm going to go into the materials here, and I'm going to customize things a little further. I'm going to give those particular spots some glow. To do that, I need to see how that's set up. Okay, cool. So I'm going to try it this way. There's a couple of different ways to create those glows. Let's go ahead and make this the emission and make that a 1. And it looks like that's okay. And then we're going to go ahead and let's see here. Well, that's fine. Oops. There we go. Let's try that. All right. So let's make that. Oh, I know what to do. Cancel. We want it to come out red. So we'll give it a red glow. And let's
Wow.
make that red as well. Okay. So that will give us some real light. Okay. Now I'm going to do my first test render. So rendering is kind of like, it's like when the cinematographer does his test shots. I do a lot of these because the thing about the view I'm looking at right now is this is an approximation view. And there are lots of ways to look at it. For example, if I'm trying to get a hand positioned around a gun, I will go ahead and use this view. This view allows me to see very precisely where the two objects are intersecting and impacting each other. So I have a better idea of what I need to do to make it look just right. Because the thing about working in this 3D environment is that the 3D doesn't care at all about what your intention is. As far as it's concerned, you can have things collide and intersect any way you want. It does not prevent the intersection for you unless you're using something called dynamics. Dynamics is a way to create realistic looking draping with like curtains and blankets and cloaks and stuff. I
Oh
actually have an
wow.
example of a dynamic cloak that I did on my website that turned out really good. So that's its own challenge. But for the most part, most of the stuff can intersect with each other. So you have to be careful with that. And so I use different views. Here's another example of a view. Here's a kind of a cartoon view. Poser tries to do some kind of like illustrated like looks, but I have found them to still be kind of coming up short and still require a lot of work to make work, which is
Yeah,
why
exactly.
I didn't go in that direction with it. But this is the view, this one or this one, the two views I use the most. Unless I'm trying to position something and I need to see through the world, then I might use a view like this. And so you can see as I go through just some of the different types of views that are available to help people build out their scenes. For my render settings, I'm going to go to, oops, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to my settings, not just render. You can see across the top here, we have multiple menus, of course, just like any app. I'm going to go to my render settings here, and I'm going to specify a few things. I like progressive refinement. It tends to show me, because it builds it out over time, which you'll see. It goes from very non-detailed to very detailed. This allows us to kind of see it more quickly if we're going to get what we want before we finish out the render. Let's go ahead and apply a post effects. Perfect. That's good. And we're just going to do a basic render. So let's render it out. Let's do that. And let's render. And so
Does
this
it
will tell
take
me if
long?
my lighting's right, if my effects are right, things like that. I'm probably right off the bat, I'm going to see that my lighting's not the greatest. Because my walls are blocking a lot of my light source. So let
Right.
this finish up here real quick. We'll get a basic idea. We can see that those two lights are kind of glowing. Notice how there's some other pieces in the room that seem to be glowing too. Those are using that kind of a fake effect. So there would be no ambient kind of like spill out from that lighting. So a lot of times in the scenes that I'm working on, I go through and like when I bring in some of this older content, I will take the time to make sure that each of my lights is actually a light source in the room, even if it's not creating a lot of light, because sometimes I have to cheat it. I have to combine a lighted material with an actual in-scene light, because you can
Right.
place virtual lights in your scene, which I'm probably going to do here to help enhance this one. It's not
Now,
bad though, because the front section of this room was opened up, so it is helping us to see. All right, we can cancel enough for there. So now this little feature, this really cool little like it's called a denoise feature, so it helps to kind of eliminate the grainy effect. Was a huge game changer in terms of saving time and getting me where I needed to be. So let's go back to our view here. All right. So what else can we put in this scene? Because we can put virtually anything in this scene. Let's put in, okay, let's first add a light. So let's see, I want a point light. Point lights are like light bulbs. They are the most realistic in-scene light source to create, but they also load in like really tiny. So sometimes it's hard to spot them. There they are, because they're kind of like, even though they're in a scene where everything's kind of given texture, they have no texture because they're light. So they're just kind of positioned in as a little 3D kind of element. So let's go ahead and move it up towards the ceiling. pretending that there's a light there that we don't really see. We'll go ahead and move it back. I'll put it above him, maybe. Put it behind him. Give it a little bit of a dramatic lighting effect. And over there. Now, it could take a long time just trying to get each thing right. But since I'm trying to do this as a demonstration only, I'm going to move on and just hope the light's in the right spot. And we'll find out when we do our next test render. Okay, other things that we could put in a scene. We could put vehicles. So I go to my air and space vehicles. And I don't know if I have anything small enough to put in there. So let's see. Anything that would fit inside here. So maybe that's not a good idea. Let's go actually. Oh, hover bike. You do a hover bike.
Yeah, hover bike would fit in there.
Yes.
He looks like the kind of guy who would ride a hover bike too.
Yep. Okay. Let's drop a military one in there. Or actually, yeah, we'll drop a military one in there. Okay. All right. And so that loads in, and as you can see, it's completely embedded in him. So we have to fix that. We move it here, and we rotate it so we get a better angle. Actually, make it like that. And we'll raise it. Actually, let me see. I use another camera view to see if it's on the ground. Nope. Okay, good. And another camera view. All right. And he is still, his heel's embedded in the ground. So let's fix that real quick. And this is where I use my front view.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I practice and experience teaches me these things, to look for these things, because they come in all the time. And it's super annoying when I miss them. Come on, there we go. I can twist this out a bit. Oh, stinker. Kinematics is a feature that prevents certain things from getting moved when you don't want them to. It's really useful in animation, but kind of pointless for most of what I do. So I always turn it off. But then I forget when I load up a new figure. All right, let me turn his other thigh out here and twist that out a little bit. There we go. Okay. And the thing is like, there's a lot of eyeballing. Part of the art of this comes from when you understand things like anatomy and art and drawing and all that stuff, you can you have a better sense of how things are supposed to look. It's the same thing with like why I'm a good retoucher. It's because I understand how things are supposed to look. So if somebody shot like in a dark room against a black background, I still kind of know where the edge of their arm is, so I can cut it out of the scene if I need to, or cut it out from the background when I'm trying to make an outline. So, and that's just experience. Okay, so we're going to raise him up a little bit so he's no longer embedded in the floor. Okay, go back to our main scene there. All right. Now, let's see here. We got a hover bike in the room. What else can we do? Let me look at my stuff real quick here. How about one more figure in the scene? Let's see. Who's got a good robot? Humanoid. I mean, I could put an animal in here, but let's put a robot. Where's a good robot? Here we go. Here we go. Is he ready to team up with a Terminator? Or is he ready to battle one?
Well, he's already got an arm, so he might as well be friends with the robot, right?
All right. Well, if he's friends with the robot, let's get him a friendlier looking robot. Which one do I like better? No, not with the neck. Let's go this one. Okay. So here we go. Now, one of the things that makes it possible for these figures to be posable is something called rigging. And that allows us to give them poses. And some of the people will get really creative with their rigging because there will be lots of extra pieces. Like with a robot, you've got to make sure that your robots doesn't, again with that, no, thank you. Thank you. Yes. You got to make sure that your robot doesn't, or bends correctly, because you don't want things to kind of warp and distort. So rigging is a nice skill as well. All right, so I went Cybermech, right? Okay, so let's see. What's a good look for him? Since we're doing the Marine or the military thing, let's make him a Marine robot. Hoorah.
Oh, yeah. Camouflage.
And let's give him a pose. All right. And then let's move them. Now that's the one thing too. Sometimes pose makers will make a pose and it's like you save the zero pose part. Now it jumped back to the beginning. So I try to be careful with that because sometimes I've already positioned it where I want it in the scene. And then it's like, oh, but now the pose is wrong. Like it's in the wrong spot. So then it gets annoying. All right, let me turn that head a little bit. All right. What are you doing? Okay. All right. Now let me see. Let me look at my list here and see if there's anything else we want to toss in here. I think we got enough stuff in this scene, right? So first we'll do a test render again. Actually, let's do the classic save as. And let's go to let's just do tester 1. All right. Again, not worrying about it because this is just for demonstration purposes. All right. There's nothing worse than getting a long ways into a project and then forgetting you haven't saved yet and it crashes. And
Yeah, that's
I have
ridiculous.
autosave turned on, but autosave doesn't work if you haven't saved at least once.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I
All
can
right.
see that being a problem.
Yeah. All right. Now, this scene is looking pretty good. I think my lighting is good enough for this. I think my stuff is all in place. But there's one more thing that I can do to add a little more realism to the scene. And I use this one a lot. Just like in the real world, depth of field. I can make the foreground
Oh,
figure in focus and the background figure is kind of blurry. All
neat.
right, so let me cancel out of here and let's let this one kind of finish for the moment. Okay. I'm going to check my Windows settings too. All right, now to get the depth of field, I use a Python script. Python, Prozer supports Python. So for those Python coders out there, it's a great way to capture the, or to add functionality to the program. And there's some great ones that are available. Sadly, some of the best ones out there are written by a guy who chose to embed them in their own sort of mini app and made it only for Windows because he doesn't know how to make it for Mac. And so I can't use them. It's very,
Oh,
very
okay.
frustrating. So I get by without. There's this one called the scatter tool, which is super cool, which allows you to take an object and then create like an instance, like multiple instances of them. So you can take a single tree and like scatter it across a field with a bunch of trees and all different scales and stuff. It's pretty cool. Rotations and everything. All right. Okay, using some of the standard settings here. All right, let me check my render settings again because it's rendering kind of slow. So let's load a fast noise preset, put in my depth of field again, and hit render now. And we let it go. Now, this didn't take too long because I'm using some of the preset content. I didn't make a lot of customizations. I didn't bring in my own custom textures like I have with Red Cat and things like that. But once I have a figure established, I can save that figure into a library and bring that figure back in scene after scene after scene. So now that I've established what Red Cat looks like, I can create new scenes and drop in my Red Cat ready to go. So then the
Right.
next thing is to build out the scene. Now when you're telling a story in comics, I know you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you have a scene that's like one panel or two panels, right? And so you can make a file that's just that one panel. Maybe it's a cover shot, or maybe it's an establishing shot or something, and you just have that one panel. So you have that one file. It's got one frame, right? But if I'm doing like a fight sequence, right, and two characters are in the same place and they're going through their moves and they're going through series moves and there's not a lot of changes. So let's say there's like in the comic, it's going to represent like 8 to 10 panels, right? I take
Mhm.
advantage of the animation tools in Poser. And so what I will do, and I'll demonstrate this in a moment as we let this kind of finish up, is I will take the figures and I'll establish frame one. And you can see here on the kind of in this area, as I move my mouse around this area here, this is my animation window, my animation palette. And then down here's my timeline.
Right.
Over here in the animation palette, I have one frame right now. That's what it indicated by the green. But currently it's by default set with 30 frames. So if I move to the next frame, I can change the pose, the camera angle, of the lighting. I can change a bunch of different elements and create my second panel. The vast majority of my sequence is then rendered or is then laid out panel by panel, frame by frame. So I'm using the animation tool to create my various panels for a scene. That way I can then batch render. I can then set a render to render all of those as if it was rendering an animation, but it spits out each frame as an individual image. And then I can take those into Illustrator after I've modified them in Photoshop, made them look the way I want. I can take them into Illustrator and create the layout and create my comic book pages. And so that's the basic gist of the process. Now we've got this image here, and this is pretty good. It's good enough for what we want to do, right? Now I would normally want to, in fact, I probably should, because this won't look good. Well, looking at our time, how much time do we have? How are we doing
So
on
we
time?
usually try to keep these to under an hour, and I feel like this isn't like I feel like we've kind of just scratched the surface. Would you be up for coming back for a a part two?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've saved this so we could actually pick up where we left off, and I could demonstrate making a couple of different panels and then exporting the art, and how I'm filtering it in Photoshop to create my distinct style. And then even, going and bringing that into, from there, I mean, bringing an Illustrator, most people don't do that, but we can definitely do that much, and kind of go from there. I would love to, I mean,
Do you want
I
to?
feel like this is a distinctly unique approach, and I have seen other 3D comics out there that people are doing, but a lot of them aren't necessarily. There's a couple of things that I'm doing that are distinct from anything else I've seen so far. So, okay, where's my? Come on, there we go. Let me bring this
So
back up here. So,
do you want to call it an episode, and then maybe sometime later this week we can pick it back up again?
later this week, maybe not, but maybe.
Okay, well, yeah, we can talk
Yeah,
off
we
the
can.
air
We'll talk about it. Yeah,
about when it'll
yeah,
be good.
exactly. So,
All right. Well,
yep,
thank you so much, Alan, and thank you to
yeah,
everybody who watched this video. We will be back with a part two next week.
very cool.
Like I said, check out Alan's Kickstarter, which should be live now, and my Kickstarter League of Cryptids is will still be live.
Definitely checking that one out.
Thank you so much, Alan, and thank you to everybody who watched.
Yeah, absolutely.